Success happens for a reason. Nostalgia only gets you so far. If a character endures for year after year, decade after decade, it's because there are fundamental elements that resonate with people of all ages and all backgrounds. It's timeless rather than timely. Such is the case with Spider-Man and his origin story in Amazing Fantasy number 15, published in 1962, written by Stan Lee and drawn by Steve Ditko. A kid is struggling with growing up, but love ultimately sets him on the proper path. There is nothing about that theme that screams 1962. Hey, it's 1962, people! This story could happen in any year. Now, a point of clarification. Some superheroes have origin stories, others merely have origin inciting incidents. And most superheroes before this era were more on the inciting incident side. The Flash got splashed by electrified chemicals, Green Lantern was bequeathed a power ring by a dying alien. An event happened to them, therefore they became superheroes. Foregone conclusion the moment they got their powers. But not so with the sort of characters Marvel was starting to create in this era. Especially Spider-Man. The radioactive spider bite is just an inciting incident, but there's a full origin story on top of that. A complete story in 11 pages featuring a dynamic character who learns an important lesson the hard way. Very little is inevitable in this story. And that's primarily because of an interesting conflict set up in the first couple of pages. We meet Peter Parker as he's an awkward adolescent existing between two worlds. It's the home environment of his childhood, where his kindly aunt and uncle shower him with love and affection, a very nurturing, safe, comfortable environment. And then there's the larger, wider world outside of his comfortable home life, the world in which he'll have to learn how to be an adult. But it's a mean, harsh world, where the other kids are mean to him and they don't appreciate him, they don't understand him. And Peter doesn't really understand them either. He doesn't understand how the wider world works. He doesn't understand how to fit into that bigger world. But he needs to. He needs to figure out how to integrate into that larger world or it's going to destroy him. It's the classic coming-of-age story type. So in that case, only two things wind up being inevitable. Peter will have to join that adult world one way or another, and that radioactive spider will bite him. Peter has very little say in those two events, but the rest is up to him. Instead of focusing on the love that his aunt and uncle already show him, he chooses instead to focus on how mean and nasty everyone is to him. That's his choice. He chooses to dwell on the negative. He dwells on the worst of people, and he allows that to make him bitter and angry and resentful. And that leaves Peter Parker sounding like a supervillain in the making. He's all, "I'll show them. Someday they'll appreciate my genius." This is not a guy that you'd expect to become Spider-Man. This is a guy you'd expect to fight Spider-Man. So he gets his powers, and like most people, his first thought isn't, "I must use my talents to fight crime and aid humanity." No, his first thought is his own personal gain. This is his ticket to receive validation and admiration from that harsh, mean adult world. So he hardly gives it a second thought when he lets a thief run right past him, a thief he very easily could have stopped with little or no personal risk to himself. And then that harsh outside world invades his happy home life, and the thief that he could have stopped kills his uncle. Peter is so focused on getting people to like him that he fails the two people who already love him unconditionally. The tragedy snaps sense into Peter. And Peter is not yet a hero at the end of this first story. He's still got a ways to go. But the seed has been planted, and planted by the very love he was desperately seeking. So Peter failed to save Uncle Ben, but Uncle Ben's love saves Peter from becoming a bad adult. If you subtract the love of Uncle Ben and Aunt May, you have no Spider-Man. And that just goes to show, all you need is love. With great power, there must come great responsibility. A hard lesson for any youth to learn. Case in point, Peter Parker, age 16, a bitter young man, lost in the chasm between childhood and adulthood, between raw potential and refined purpose. Peter Parker has fallen through the abyss and landed in the Twilight Zone. Okay, so maybe not the Twilight Zone, but actually the Marvel Universe. Whatever year it is, with great power, there comes great responsibility. Whether it's 1962, 2018, 2153, it's a lesson to children and it's a reminder to adults. Be the best adult. Grow up into the best adult you can be. That is your responsibility in any era. Do not waste that potential by dwelling in bitterness and hatred. So on that note, thank you for watching. Goodbye.